Hey there. Welcome to my story, where I'm going to share with you a spooky night I'll never forget. Imagine the sound of rain tapping on your window, and you're in the middle of something really strange and scary. I promise you'll want to stick around until the end because I've got a special surprise just for you. While you listen, please take a moment to let me know where you're tuning in from, and if you enjoy the story, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Ready for a thrill? Let's dive in. It was a stormy night when it all began. I was sitting in my cozy room, listening to the rain drum against the window like 1,000 tiny fingers. The wind howled outside, making the trees sway ominously. I was safe inside, wrapped in my favorite blanket, but something felt different that evening. There was an electric buzz in the air that made my skin tingle. Suddenly, I heard a soft tapping at my window. I jumped, my heart racing. I peered out but saw nothing but shadows cast by the moonlight. I told myself it was just the wind and maybe a branch hitting the glass. But then the tapping came again, this time louder and more insistent. I mustered the courage and slowly opened the window. The air that rushed in felt cold and damp against my face, sending chills down my spine. As I looked out, I noticed something strange standing at the edge of the woods behind my house. A figure dressed in dark clothing, almost blending into the night. I could hardly see its face, but I felt its gaze on me. It was like it was studying me, waiting for me to make a move. I quickly shut the window and backed away, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. I convinced myself it was just my imagination, heightened by the storm outside. But deep down I felt like something was very wrong. The rain continued to pour, but I couldn't calm down. I decided I'd make some hot cocoa to soothe my nerves. As I entered the kitchen, the kettle whistling like an angry ghost, I heard the persistent tapping again, this time from the back door. I hesitated, my hand trembling against the counter. With a deep breath, I went to the door and slowly opened it just a crack. The wind whipped past me, sending a shiver down my spine. Standing there in the shadows was the figure again, closer this time, its face partially hidden by a hood. "Hello," I called out, my voice shaking. "Who are you?" No answer came, but I felt an overwhelming sense of fear. The figure stepped forward slightly and I could see its face now. It was pale and sharp, with piercing eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I stood frozen, caught in the gaze of something I couldn't understand. "Help me," the figure whispered, its voice soft and lilting like the wind rustling through trees. "I need shelter from the storm." I knew I should shut the door and run, but something about its voice pulled at my heart. Are you okay?" I managed to ask, feeling foolish for even speaking to it. It took another step closer, and I could see its lips pull back in a strange smile, revealing sharp, pointed teeth. Panic surged through me. "You shouldn't be out here alone. It's dangerous," I said, trying to sound brave. "I won't harm you," it insisted, tilting its head. "But I do need your help. I'm lost." Just then, a gust of wind slammed the door shut behind me and I jumped. I snapped out of my trance. I can't help you. You should go." The figure stepped back into the shadow and I thought I saw its eyes darken. "Darkness lingers where warmth is found," it whispered ominously. Those words sent a shiver down my spine, and without another thought, I locked the door and backed away into my kitchen. The rain fell heavier now, each drop sounding like a hammer against the roof. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. I was trying to convince myself I had made the right choice, but doubt crept in. What if that figure was telling the truth? What if it really was just lost? I paced back and forth in my living room, trying to distract myself. The flickering lights of my lamp cast long shadows that danced around the walls, and every little sound from outside felt amplified. Suddenly, there was a loud knock on the door, much harder than before. My breath caught in my throat. "Let me in," the figure called out, its voice sharp now, filled with urgency. "Please?" My thoughts raced. Part of me wanted to help, to open the door and see if it really was just a person in trouble. But a stronger part of me screamed to stay away. I couldn't shake the unease growing in my stomach. "What do you want?" I shouted, hoping to sound tough, but my voice trembled. "I'm not what you think. I just need a little light to guide me home," it answered, and there was a strange melodic quality to its words that made my heart ache. "Just go away," I yelled back, feeling tears of fear prick at the corners of my eyes. I didn't want to cry, but I felt powerless in the face of such an unsettling situation. For a moment there was silence and I hoped it would leave. But then the tapping sounded again, softer this time. I felt drawn to the door again, my fear battling with my compassion. "Please," came the voice, and it was almost pleading now. I felt a sudden urge to open the door, to let it in just for a moment. "No." I shook my head, backing away again. But the flickering light overhead went out, plunging the room into darkness. I gasped, my heart racing. "What do you want?" I whispered, too afraid to make any sudden movements. "Just to talk," it replied. "Just a little warmth." I was terrified but also curious. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I am a traveler lost between worlds," it murmured, sounding sad. "I need only a few moments to catch my breath. The rains hide me, but they also threaten me." I stared into the darkness, trying to see anything, but only shadows loomed. I didn't know what to do. I thought about calling my parents, but they were out for the evening. I was all alone in this moment, and every little creak of the house made me jump. "Please," the figure pressed again, and this time, there was a kind of desperation in its tone. "I promise I won't hurt you. I just want to share stories." "Stories?" I echoed, confused. "What kind of stories?" "Stories of old, of shadows and light, of forgotten things." It trailed off as if lost in thought. "Stories of fear and also of friendship." I felt a compulsion, an urge to know more. Maybe the rain was making me go crazy, or maybe it was just this strange being whispering in the dark. "Okay," I found myself saying, surprising even myself. "You can talk, but just talk. No funny business." The door creaked open slowly and the figure stepped in, shrouded in darkness. My heart pounded in my chest. It looked around at my simple living room, as if taking in every detail before its gaze returned to me. I held my breath, feeling utterly exposed. "I was watching you," it said softly. "Living your life, finding joy even when storms rage. It was beautiful." I didn't know how to respond. "Why are you watching me? That's kind of creepy." The figure smiled, but there was something unsettling about that smile. "I am not here to harm, only to learn. There is much to feel in the warmth of a home." "I guess," I replied, feeling a bit braver. "But why now? Why during a storm? Sometimes storms bring out the truth." It stepped a little closer and I took a small step back. The shadows seemed to swirl around us and my mind raced with questions. "What truth?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Truths of our existence, of fear that lives in us all," it explained, its voice smooth like silk. "You fear me, but it is my nature to be feared. What you don't know is the power of fear itself. It can be your friend or your enemy." I gulped. "That sounds confusing." "It is," it agreed. "But share this moment with me and you will understand. Listen to the rain. Each drop is a story waiting to be told." I hesitated, but there was something captivating in its voice. I had never met anyone quite like it. "Okay, tell me," I said, letting curiosity take the lead. The figure closed its eyes as if remembering something long forgotten. "Long ago there was a village much like yours, hidden in the woods. They feared the dark, but in that darkness lived a creature much like me. I learned about the village that had turned to stone from fear, how the darkness had turned them into shadows of themselves." And as the figure spoke, the storm outside grew more intense, the wind howling like a pack of wolves. But instead of feeling scared, I felt a strange comfort in its voice. It told me of lost children who had wandered too far into the dark, and how the shadows kept them hidden away. "Did they ever come back?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Sometimes," it said. "But they were never the same. Fear had changed them forever." I pondered that for a moment, thinking about how fear could shape people. What happens if we face our fears? I wondered aloud. "The light may return," it murmured. "You may find that the darkness only hides what you don't want to see. Understanding can bring warmth." The rain fell harder and I could hear thunder rumbling in the distance. I felt unease creeping in again. "I think I should go to bed," I finally said, my voice trembling again. "Of course," the figure said with a nod. "But remember, I will always be close by, watching, waiting for the moment to share stories again." I swallowed hard. "You're not going to hurt me?" "Never," it answered firmly, its eyes brightening as if to reassure me. "But my presence is a reminder that fear is never very far away." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and worry. I turned away slowly and headed toward my bedroom, glancing back over my shoulder to see the figure still standing there, its form cloaked in shadow. "Good night," it said softly, almost like a whisper of wind. "Good night," I replied, feeling the weight of its eyes on me as I shut the door behind me. I lay under my blanket, my heart racing. I couldn't tell if I had just met a friend or a foe. The rain continued to pour outside, and the wind howled like a mournful spirit searching for something lost. As I closed my eyes, I felt an uneasy sense of comfort, knowing that wherever I went, that figure, whatever it was, would always be near. I brought the blanket tightly around me and turned my back to the door. I couldn't sleep, not with thunder crashing overhead and the memories of the night replaying in my mind. I thought of the village in the rain, the lost children, and how fear had made them prisoners of darkness. And as the storm raged on, I promised myself I would face my fears because maybe, just maybe, understanding could bring me light. As the rain continued to fall, I listened to the sound, remembering the stories shared that night. Time flowed slowly, the rhythm of rain soothing yet unsettling, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all just the beginning of something far more extraordinary. I lay there, my mind swirling with questions and images of that strange figure. Each creak of my house felt like whispers in the dark, secrets hiding in the shadows. I knew I should sleep, but sleep felt like a distant dream. The rain continued to smash against my window, a wild symphony that filled the room with an eerie melody. As I listened, I began to imagine what lay outside. What if that figure was still there, lurking in the shadows? I shifted under my blanket, trying to shake off the growing sense of dread. Every sound seemed magnified. The wind howled like a wild beast, and the rain drummed a frenzied beat that matched the thunder in the distance. Suddenly, I heard a noise that sent chills down my spine. It was a soft scratching sound like nails against wood. It came from my bedroom door. My heart leaped. I lay frozen, staring at the sliver of light peeking in under my door. Was it the figure, or was it just my mind playing tricks on me? The scratching grew louder. It felt intentional, like something was trying to get my attention. I squeezed my eyes shut, wishing it would stop. I thought of calling for help, but I knew that no one would hear me over the roar of the storm. Instead, I held my breath and listened. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the scratching stopped. An unsettling silence enveloped me. I dared to peek under the door, my heart pounding. The light still flickered, but nothing was there. It was just a shadow, my imagination running wild again. I took a deep breath and tried to convince myself it was nothing. But then I remembered the stories that the figure had shared. Stories of shadows that lingered, of fears taking tangible form. I recounted every detail in my head, and the more I thought about it, the more real it all felt. What if those lost children were trying to reach me somehow? What if I had opened a door to a world I didn't understand? I rolled over, trying to shake off these thoughts, but sleep was still far away. Just when I thought the storm had calmed, a lightning bolt struck nearby, illuminating my room in a fierce flash of white light. For a split second, I felt as if the shadows had come alive, pulling away from the corners of the room, revealing shapes I had never seen. Then everything went dark again. The lights flickered, then cut off completely, plunging me into darkness. I sat up, my heart racing. The only sound was the ferocious rain pounding against the roof. My mind raced with possibilities. I told myself it was okay to be afraid. It meant I was alive, but soon that comfort faded. I got out of bed, although every fiber of my being told me to stay put. I navigated through the pitch-black room, searching for my flashlight. My hands trembled as I fumbled around until I finally found it under my nightstand. I switched it on, and a beam of light cut through the dark. The shadows danced with the flickering light as I turned to face the door. My heart thudded in my chest. I wanted to feel brave, but all I felt was anxiety, gnawing at me like a ravenous creature. Perhaps curiosity would drive me to unlock the door and face whatever awaited me. Gathering my courage, I approached the door. As I got closer, I noticed something strange. A dark shape shifted under the door, a shadow that seemed to pulse like it was alive. I leaned in closer, squinting to see through the faint light. Was it just my imagination, or was this something more sinister? I took a step back, breath catching as I remembered the figure's words about fear. Fear is never very far away. The shadows seemed to whisper, swirling around me, wrapping me in an unsettling embrace. I needed to know what was happening to see for myself. Mustering all the courage I had left, I twisted the doorknob and opened the door with a slow creak. As I stepped outside my room, an icy chill swept over me. The hallway was dim, shadows gathering in the corners like dark fog. I focused the flashlight beam ahead of me, illuminating the walls and floor. Everything felt eerily quiet, as if the entire house was holding its breath. I walked down the dim corridor, the air heavy with tension. Each step echoed ominously, and I could hear my heartbeat loud in my ears. I had to get to the window to see what was happening outside. The rain had become a torrent, and I wondered if that figure was still out there, waiting. With every step, I felt like eyes were watching me, hidden in the dark. It was as if the house itself was alive, absorbing my fear and feeding off it. I paused, listening carefully. Was it just the sound of the rain, or was there something else? A soft giggle echoed down the hallway, so delicate yet so unnatural. I froze, heart racing. I needed to find out what it was. Was it a child, a lost soul? My curiosity pulled me forward even as caution whispered in my ear to turn back. As I approached the end of the hallway where the stairs led downstairs, I saw a flicker of movement. My breath hitched in my throat. Someone, or something, was standing at the bottom. I aimed my flashlight, and for a brief moment, I met a pair of wide, gleaming eyes staring back up at me from the depths of the dark. Panic surged through me and I stumbled back against the wall, trying to steady my shaking hands. Was it the figure I had met? Or something worse? I could barely breathe, the strange laughter ringing in my ears, echoing like a distant memory. "Come down," a voice called, sweet and innocent, but it chilled me to my core. "We're playing a game. Don't you want to play?" I shook my head, backing away slowly, heart pounding harder with every word. "No, I don't want to play," I shouted back, trying to sound brave. The laughter grew louder, more compelling. "It's fun. We just want to be friends." I turned to run back to my room, but an icy hand grasped my ankle, sending me crashing to the floor. I gasped and twisted, shining my light towards the source of the grip. What I saw made my blood run cold. A small figure with pale skin and deep-set eyes stared back at me. The laugh now turned into a creepy giggle that sent shivers down my spine. It was a child, but something was very wrong. Its face was twisted into a grin that was far too wide, far too sharp. "Play with us," it urged again, clawing its way toward me. The room seemed to spin as terror coursed through me. I scrambled backward, pushing myself up on shaky legs and darting towards the stairs. The child chased after me, laughter echoing through the dark halls. I ran, fear flooding my senses, throwing myself into the safety of my room. I slammed the door shut, locking it tight. I pressed my back against the door, breathless and terrified. The eerie giggling faded, but I knew it wouldn't be long before it returned. I quickly glanced around the room, my heart racing. I needed to find a way to protect myself. As I scanned my surroundings, I realized the shadows seemed thicker, absorbing the light from my flashlight. My mind raced with everything I had encountered. The figure, the stories, the dark figure lurking just beyond the door. I was caught in something bigger than I understood. Suddenly, I heard a soft knocking on my bedroom door. My blood ran cold. "Let me in," the small voice called, sweet and innocent. "I just want to play, please. We can have so much fun together." I pressed my hands to my ears, wanting to block out the sound. "Go away," I shouted, feeling desperate. "I don't want to play. Just leave me alone." "You can't hide from us," it sang, the tone become teasing. "We're right here, always close. Join us, you'll be one of us soon." My heart raced as I steadied my breath. I needed to think, to find a way to break free from this suffocating fear. The stories had warned me, yet I had acted against them. What could I do now? Suddenly, a loud crash came from outside, jolting me. Was it just the storm, or was something else happening just beyond the walls? Mustering my courage, I moved toward the window, fearing what I might see. As I flung open the curtain, the rain cascaded down, but what caught my eye was more disturbing. My heart raced as I saw it. Figures dancing among the trees, flickering in and out of the shadows, their shapes twisted and unnatural. They flitted like shadows miscast by the moonlight, their eyes glowing with a strange hunger. I pressed my hands against the glass, feeling overwhelmed, and just at that moment they turned as one, locking their eyes on me. I felt a jolt of terror, a primal instinct telling me to run and hide. But instead I found myself rooted to the spot, the room spinning as I gazed at those figures. Then I heard a quiet cry and jolted back. A child stood behind me, pale and delicate with those same wide eyes from before. Somehow it was now inside my room. The laughter faded into a whisper, and my heart raced with fear. "Let's play hide and seek," the child said sweetly, tilting its head. "You'll never win." I inhaled sharply, stumbling back and almost tripping over the bed. "Get away from me," I shouted, panic choking me. But the child only grinned wider, revealing sharp teeth through its innocent smile. "That's what they all say," it taunted, stepping closer. "But no one ever escapes." I felt the walls closing in, and for a moment I was paralyzed with fear. Understanding flickered in my mind. This was a game I didn't want to play. It was a game that would keep me trapped in darkness forever. As the figures outside began to close in, I knew I had to act quickly. I had to confront the fear I had been feeling. "No," I shouted, my voice trembling but stronger than before. "I won't play your game." With a surge of newfound confidence, I lunged toward the child and pushed it away, rushing to the door. I flung it open and bolted down the hallway, feeling the air grow thick with shadows as I raced past the living room. I had to escape. I had to find a way to break through the fear that had swallowed me. But as I reached the front door, I hesitated, realizing I had no idea what awaited me outside. The storm raged on, lightning illuminating the night like the flash of a camera. Shadows darted, taunting me to come forward. I was caught in a web of fear, and the realization hit me hard. The darkness wanted me, but I couldn't let it win. Gathering every ounce of strength, I flung open the front door and charged out into the rain. Each drop felt like an icy slap against my skin, but I didn't care. I ran toward the woods, desperate to outrun whatever horrors awaited me in the darkness that pursued me. As I entered the trees, the shadows thickened, wrapping around me like a living creature. The figures moved closer, their laughter mingling with the sound of the rain, turning into a chilling chorus. "Join us," they beckoned, their voices echoing. "You'll never be alone again." I stumbled deeper into the woods. I needed to find shelter, somewhere I could hide, somewhere I could gather my thoughts. I couldn't look back. I had to focus on what lay ahead. When I reached a clearing, I paused to catch my breath. The rain poured down, but here the trees provided some cover, creating a sanctuary where I could think. I leaned against a tree, trying to calm my racing heart. That's when I heard it again, a soft sound like the scratching had returned. My stomach dropped. I turned, shining my flashlight back into the trees. There it was. The child hovering at the edge of the clearing, peeking from behind a tree with wide eyes, still smiling that terrible, twisted smile. "Did you think you could run forever?" it asked sweetly, amusement dancing in its voice. "Leave me alone," I screamed, backing away. But the child stepped closer, the shadows following like obedient pets. They circled around me, inching closer, echoing the child's laughter. "Playing is so much fun. Don't you want to join us?" "No," shouted, desperately scrambling back, but the shadows pressed in tighter and tighter. I had to think fast. Glancing around, I remembered something the figure had said about facing fears. Maybe I could confront them. Perhaps if I spoke out against them, if I was brave enough, I could break free. "Stop," I yelled, surprising myself with the force in my voice. The shadows hesitated, pulling back just a fraction, as if my words had struck them. I could feel the energy in the air change, a tension that hung heavy. I steadied myself, breathing through the panic that threatened to overwhelm me. "I won't play your game," I repeated, my voice stronger this time. "You can't take me." The child's smile twisted, darkening the space around me. It flickered for a moment, and I saw something terrifying behind that facade, eyes filled with a longing that felt ancient and broken. "Don't you want to be free?" it asked, a hint of sorrow lacing its question. Something in its tone made my insides twist. "We understand fear. We want to help you. Why don't you join the game and you'll never feel alone again?" The words wrapped around me like vines, squeezing tight. I wanted to run, to say anything to escape the temptation, but my instincts held me steady. "I want to be free from you. You aren't my friends." The shadows swirled, sensing my defiance. The laughter turned sinister, echoing off the trees. In an instant, I could feel the presence of more figures emerging from the darkness, coalescing into shapes that danced on the fringes of the dim light. Their forms stretched and warped, twisting into forms I'd never seen before, creatures with elongated limbs and faces that looked like they belonged to nightmares. Some had grinning mouths full of jagged teeth. Others wore expressions of deep sorrow, as if they were trapped in a never-ending waltz of despair. "Join us," they whispered in unison, their voices layered together, creating a chilling harmony. "You'll feel the thrill. You'll embrace the dark." I shook my head violently. "No, I refuse." With every word of defiance I spoke, their expressions shifted, becoming darker and more desperate. The child stepped forward, and its voice became pleading, almost pitiful. "Why can't you just give in? We offer the greatest freedom you'll ever know. No more loneliness, just acceptance." In that moment, I felt a powerful wave of sadness wash over me. It was as if the shadows had laid bare their own heartbreaks, showing me their painful realities. But I couldn't allow myself to be swayed. I remembered the stories told by the figure, the ones that hinted at the dangers of giving in to fear and despair. "You think I'm alone?" I shouted again, drawing on every ounce of strength. "You don't understand what it's like to fight for light. I won't let you win." My words sent a ripple through their ranks. The shadows flickered as if startled by my resolve. For a moment, I thought I saw something shift in their eyes, uncertainty mingled with anger. The child's innocent facade cracked ever so slightly, and it stepped back, its form wavering. "Run then," it hissed, seething with anger. "But no, you cannot escape. We are everywhere. We are the shadows, the fears you carry. You cannot hide forever." With that, the figures surged forward, their shadows stretching, reaching out like clawed hands hungry to snatch me back into their fold. I turned and bolted deeper into the woods, my heart racing and breath coming in frantic gasps. Branches whipped against my face as I plunged into the thicket, no longer caring about the path. Each step felt like leaping into an abyss. I could hear their laughter chasing behind me, echoing off the trees, becoming a twisted symphony that would haunt me forever. Just when I thought they'd captured me, I stumbled upon a clearing that glowed faintly in the moonlight. I stopped, gasping for breath, and looked around frantically. Was this a safe place? Or had I walked into a trap? The clearing was filled with mist, curling low to the ground like a living entity. The air felt cooler here, almost refreshing, and for a moment, it seemed to offer solace. I could hear the thunderous rain begin to ease, the roars of nature shifting into a subdued murmur. But the laughter was not gone. It lingered at the edge, reminding me I wasn't free yet. Suddenly from behind a shimmering tree, an ancient figure emerged, tall and regal, cloaked in shadows that seemed to writhe around its limbs like hungry snakes. My heart dropped into my stomach as I realized it was the same figure I had encountered before, the one that had spoken of fear. "Why do you resist?" it asked, hints of sadness layered within the tone. "Fear can empower you, give you strength. You do not have to face this alone." I stepped back, confused and terrified. "You said fear can be my friend. But what if it leads me to this?" I gestured to the shadows gathering at the edge of the clearing, their hunger palpable. "What's the point of embracing fear if it only brings more despair?" The figure's expression softened, its eyes swirling with deep understanding. Understanding is the key to utilizing fear. You must confront it, not merely run from it. Only then can you reclaim your power. Reclaim? I repeated, breathless. How? They want to drag me into the darkness. They want you to accept their nature. You can fight them, but you must also learn what they want to teach you, it explained. There is strength in the amalgamation of light and dark, joy and sorrow. I hesitated, the struggle churning inside me. But the shadows make me feel weak. They seem like nothing but danger. The figure stepped closer, casting a long shadow that danced with the movements of the trees. Do not let that weakness consume you. Instead, let it fuel a fire inside your heart. Step into the truth of your emotions. Only then will you learn to stand against them. I swallowed hard, sensing the shadows lingering near the edge, but I knew I had to try. I drew in a deep breath, filling my lungs with the cool night air, and faced the gathering darkness. Taking a step forward, I called out, "You think you can scare me, but I won't let you take control. You may be terrifying, but I will not be your puppet. I see you, I recognize you." As I spoke, the shadows swelled, swirling together, merging into one. The child's face appeared at the forefront, laughter now mingling with an ominous undercurrent. "So brave but foolish. You cannot escape us." "I'm not trying to escape." I yelled back, surprising myself with the conviction. "I'm trying to understand. I see you as part of what I am, but I won't submit to fear." The shadows trembled, and for a moment, a flicker of uncertainty flashed in their crazed eyes. They hesitated, their twisted forms flickering like a flame in the wind. Instead of moving closer, they seemed to be recoiling. "Why fight?" they echoed, voices confused. "Fear is all you'll ever know. We give you power in the dark." But now something was changing. The clearing that had felt so oppressive began to brighten. Light pushed out from the trees, illuminating not just the ground but the very shadows that had haunted me. "It's not power if it enslaves you," I cried, feeling a warmth rising from within. "You can't control me. I want to embrace every part of myself, weakness and strength alike." As I confessed my truth, my feet felt rooted to the ground, and I began to glow, a warm light radiating from deep inside me. It pulsed like a heartbeat, pushing against the darkness, illuminating the trees around me. The shadows writhed in resistance, their whispers turning frantic. "No. You are our plaything. Come back." "No." I shouted once more, unable to ignore the power swelling within me. "I'm done being afraid. I embrace you. You're part of me, but I refuse to let my fears dictate my path." The light around me intensified, pushing back against the looming darkness. I saw the figures shrink, their forms wavering under my radiance. The child stood at the forefront, its joy now tainted with despair. "You'll regret this," it hissed, retreating as the shadows slowly dissolved. But I didn't relent. Instead, I felt a rush of freedom coursing through me, washing away the remnants of fear. I was alive, standing tall among the trees, embodying both the shadows and the light, a balance I now grasped. For the first time, I owned my fear. It became a part of my journey rather than my end. Just as the last remnants of the shadows faded into the dark, I smiled. I was no longer a prisoner but a believer in the light I could create. With newfound strength, I turned to the figure that had watched me with calm eyes. It bowed its head, a gesture of respect. You have faced what lies in the dark and you have emerged whole. Remember that courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. I nodded, feeling empowered. The journey didn't end here, it had only begun. The rain had ceased, and as I stepped out of the clearing, the path ahead seemed brighter, filled with possibilities. I had confronted my fears and emerged stronger, determined to face whatever came next. As I took my first step forward, I couldn't shake the feeling that I would always carry a piece of that darkness within me, but now I held the light. Together, we would entwine, creating a balance that would guide me through the shadows and lead me toward a brighter future. I moved onward, stepping into the embrace of the night, ready to face whatever challenges awaited on the horizon. As I stepped forward, the shadows behind me seemed to retreat deep into the woods, as if they understood their power over me was broken. But I knew this wasn't the end. My heart pounded in my chest, a reminder that I was still too close to that darkness. Every step felt heavier as I moved away from the clearing. The air grew thicker, and the remnants of rain began again, pattering softly on the leaves overhead. I thought about the lessons I learned from facing my fears. But even those thoughts couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for me, lurking just beyond the trees, watching and plotting its next move. Suddenly, I heard a rustling sound behind me. My heart jumped into my throat as I spun around, squinting into the darkness between the trees. The shadows felt alive again, swirling like smoke. It was like they were reaching out, trying to pull me back into the clutches of despair. Images of the child's smile flashed in my mind. "You cannot escape," it echoed, and a chill raced down my spine. I forced myself to move faster, navigating the treacherous ground, avoiding roots and rocks that tried to trip me. The laughter from earlier crept back into my ears. It was disconcerting, like 1,000 whispers swirling around, creeping into my thoughts. I needed to focus. I couldn't let whatever was out there catch me. But each breath I took felt heavier, weighed down by my dread. I found a small path that led deeper into the woods. Although every instinct urged me to run, a strange curiosity tugged at me. What lay further down the path? I walked silently, trying to listen to the sounds around me. It was too quiet, almost oppressive. The only noise was the soft, consistent drumming of rain on the leaves. I took a deep breath, feeling the moisture in the air cling to my skin. Shadows danced at the periphery of my vision, and I could swear I heard soft whispers, just beyond the reach of understanding. Then I spotted it, a flicker of light glimmering faintly between the trees. I hesitated, my instincts screaming that it was a trap, but I was drawn to it. The light pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat, casting long shadows that twisted unnaturally in the darkness. What is that? I thought. Do I dare approach? Is it safe? Against my better judgment, I stepped closer to the light. As I moved through the underbrush, the atmosphere shifted. The rain seemed to intensify, creating a wall of sound that drowned out everything else. I felt a tingling sensation run down my spine, like fingers tracing my back. The light flickered again, illuminating the area around it. That's when I saw them, figures standing just beyond the glow. They were still, their faces turned away from me, cloaked in shadow. Panic swelled in my chest, freezing my feet to the ground. My voice seemed to vanish into the void. "Who are you?" I finally managed to croak, but all I heard was a soft giggle in response, the kind that makes your skin crawl. With a sudden rush, the figures turned to face me, and I stumbled back, nearly falling into the brush. Their eyes were hollow, dark voids filled with longing and despair, a stark contrast to the flickering light. They whispered my name, their voices echoing painfully in my ears, chilling my bones. "Come and join us," they beckoned, their voices sweet yet laced with malice. "No more fighting, no more loneliness. We are waiting for you." I felt my skin creeping. The more they spoke, the more the warmth inside me began to shrink. My breath came in short gasps, and before I knew it, I was spinning away as the warm glow flickered ominously. "Leave me alone," I screamed, racing back down the path. I didn't look back, but I could feel their gaze piercing through the dark, their shadows clawing at the edges of my mind. As I stumbled through the trees, the rain fell heavier, cold drops hitting my skin like icy needles. I ducked into a small grove, hoping to find some escape or cover. The trees stood tall and thick, intertwining branches creating a natural barrier. Sweat dripped down my brow as I tried to steady my breath. I pressed my back against the bark, willing myself to calm down. The shadows eddied at the edges of the grove, whispering, "We see you. You cannot hide from us." "Shut up." I shouted into the fray, clenching my fists tightly. I realized my voice was trembling, and it only added to the suffocating atmosphere. Then, a spine-chilling chill wrapped around me, and to my horror, the light began to flicker in the grove, casting eerie shapes on the ground. Was this another trap? I squeezed my eyes shut, refusing to give in to the creeping dread. A sudden gust of wind made the branches creak, and that's when I heard it, a low, guttural growl emerging from the shadows. Panic surged within me as I opened my eyes, searching in every direction. The whispers grew louder, intertwining with the growl, creating a chilling harmony that echoed in my ears. I felt the presence moving closer, brushing against the trees in the shadow of the night. Whatever it was big and it was hungry. I took a trembling step backward, only to find myself pressing against something cold and smooth. The air thickened around me, and the darkness curled like smoke, twisting into shapes that mocked my fear. "Why won't you play?" the voices cooed, each word dripping with malice. "We've waited so long for you to join us. Don't ignore us, we want you here." I clenched my jaw, forcing my legs to move away from that terrible presence, fear pushing me forward. I ran through the grove as fast as I could, branches clawing at my arms. I didn't dare look back. I could feel something trailing behind me, clawing at the edges of my mind, eager to pull me back in, to the shadows. Then I stumbled into another glade, this one filled with twisted trees and fog. The ground was soft, covered with moss that absorbed the sound of my footsteps. Heart racing, I turned around, scanning the dim light. "Leave me alone." I breathed heavily, desperation coating my words. But the shadows thickened, presences coiling tighter around the glade. And that growl returned, deeper this time, echoing off the trees. My heart thundered in my chest, relentless in its chaos, and I sensed I was being hunted. "Playtime is just beginning," a voice hissed from the darkness, chilling me to my core. With newfound urgency, I dashed toward the edge of the glade, dodging low-hanging branches and thick vines as the growl intensified, reverberating through the trees, vibrating through the ground beneath me. The moment I crossed into a narrow path, I heard more giggling, more voices joining in the frenzy. They were getting closer, their shadows mingling as they danced with the fears swirling inside me. I couldn't let them catch me. I tore through the twisted branches, the cold air biting at my skin. My lungs burned as I pushed against the rhythm of the chaos behind me. But deep down, I knew I had to stand my ground, to face whatever horror awaited. The path twisted sharply, leading me deeper into the forest. And just as hope began to flicker in my chest, I tripped over a root, crashing to my knees as the world spun around me. Gasping for air, I looked up to find myself staring at an ancient tree, its trunk wide and gnarled, twisted roots sprawling like a monstrous creature waking from slumber. In the low light, a door appeared at the base, slightly ajar as if inviting me in. "Do not enter," the shadows hissed, their voices mixing into a cacophony. "That is not your place. Come back to us." Heart pounding, I scrambled back to my feet, inching closer to the tree, feeling the pull of its energy. A strange warmth radiated from within. I hesitated at the threshold, glancing back at the dark figures advancing towards me with their hollow eyes and insatiable desire. "Choose," they called, their voices intertwining, a sickening melody of temptation. "Join us or step into the darkness." As the shadows enveloped the clearing, I could feel my courage falter. I took a breath, the warmth of the tree drawing me closer, and in that moment, knowing I had the power to choose was both terrifying and freeing. With resolve surging through me, I stepped inside, pushing the door open fully. The darkness swallowed me whole as I crossed the threshold, the sounds of the outside world fading away. Inside, the air was thick and warm, filled with the scent of earth and moss, almost like being wrapped in a blanket. It almost felt safe, yet I knew that safety had a price. I didn't look back. I focused on the area around me as the door creaked softly, not willing to let the shadows win. Before me lay a passageway, dimly lit by glowing stones embedded in the walls. An eerie hum filled the air, resonating through the stone like a heartbeat, pulsing with a rhythm all its own. I felt both apprehensive and curious, moving further into the void where no shadows chased me, for now. A flicker of movement caught my eye, an outline moving just beyond the reach of the light. My pulse quickened as I turned, but there was nothing there, just whispers that faded away. I knew I had stepped into a realm I didn't understand, where the rules of fear and darkness tangled like a web. My breath caught in my throat as I continued down the tunnel, the unsettling feeling that something was watching me grew stronger with every step. Was I really safe here? Or had I only traded one darkness for another? With determination I pressed on. I had to know what lay ahead. I had to discover the truth hidden away in this shadowy world, no matter how terrifying it might be. The only way out was to face whatever awaited me. Finally, I emerged into a grand chamber. The walls glimmered with crystals that reflected the dim light into a kaleidoscope of colors, shimmering like a dream. But the beauty felt deceptive, a mere mask hiding something far more sinister. In the center of the chamber lay a pedestal, and on it rested a small, ornate box. As I approached it, an icy chill wrapped around me, trying to push me back. I could feel the pulse of energy from the box almost controlling the space around it. "Open it," the whispers urged, filling the air with an intoxicating blend of temptation and dread. "You will find your truth inside." Heart racing, I reached for the box, my fingers trembling at the edge, collecting all the courage I had left. But then I hesitated, searching the darkness for any form of protection, any sign that I wouldn't regret this choice. What if it held the secrets of the darkness I feared so deeply? What if I was inviting it back into my life by uncovering this truth? And yet, could I walk away without knowing what lay within? I drew in a shaky breath and forced myself to lift the lid. The moment the box creaked open, a brilliant light erupted, filling the chamber with a blinding radiance that pushed the shadows back, if only momentarily. Inside lay a mirror, its surface gleaming and smooth, almost alive with energy. I took a step closer, entranced by what it might reveal. But as I looked into the mirror, my heart dropped. The reflection was not my own. Instead, it showed fleeting images of all my fears, memories of moments when I felt weak, lost, and overwhelmed. Emotions flooded over me, raw and poignant, clawing back to the surface. The shadows whispered, "Face what you fear most." Each image seemed to reach for me, pulling at my heartstrings, whispering words of doubt and uncertainty. My eyes widened, my breath caught in my throat. I could feel my resolve wavering as I watched my insecurities play out before me. "Are you still so brave?" they taunted. "You said you won't let us control you, but look what we've shown you. This is who you really are." I gritted my teeth, pushing against the tide of despair that threatened to drown me. No, I was not defined by those moments. I refused to give in, refused to let them reshape me. "Your power lies within you," the echoes reminded me. "You must confront what you see and rise above it." The truth of their words washed over me like a tide. I was not just my fears and regrets. I was the strength that had brought me here. I took a deep breath and looked back into the mirror, letting the images wash over me without fear. "I will not be afraid," I screamed, feeling the weight lift off. The darkness. I felt a surge of energy course through me, a flicker of hope igniting in my chest. No longer would I let fear cling to me like a shadow. As my voice echoed in the chamber, the mirror rippled, distorting the images within. The reflections twisted and turned, morphing into grotesque shapes that snarled and shrieked in response to my defiance. They lunged toward me, their mouths gaping wide, silent screams stretching across the fabric of fear. But instead of backing down, I held my ground, determined to confront the monstrous essence of my past. I scowled at the mirror, my reflection shifting to show me moments of doubt and regret. Each image flickered like an old film reel, with faces I never wanted to see again. Friends that turned away, moments of failure that haunted me, and offers of help I rejected. Through the distortion of the mirror, shadows began twisting in the corners of the room, creeping closer. With every flick of the candlelight, I could feel the energy of the dark figures building, their whispers turning into a cacophony of taunts and fears. "Why keep fighting?" they called out, their voices slithering through the air like smoke. "You know what lies within you, don't you? Accept it." Trapped in a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts, I took a shaky step forward, the darkness swirling like a tempest, threatening to consume me. The moment I moved toward the pedestal again, the figures writhed and shrieked as if pained by my resolve. They lunged toward me, but a barrier of light flared up from the mirror, a shield forged from the will that I refused to break. "I won't be afraid of you," I shouted, but the words felt weak compared to the overwhelming presence surrounding me. "You are not my truth." The shadows recoiled momentarily, but then surged forth, trying to break through that fragile light. The whispers returned, sharper now, filled with malice and despair. "You think you've won? This is just the beginning." As I felt the shadows pressing down, I noticed the glow from the mirror brighter than before, vibrating with an unseen energy, yearning for someone to accept its power. Gathering my strength, I reached out, placing my hand on the cold surface. An electric sense seeped into my palm, Colors swirled in vibrant hues, ascending upward, wrapping around me like a blanket. Suddenly visions flooded my mind, overwhelming in their intensity. I was witnessing a series of events that transpired in previous moments, every fear, heartbreak, and denial flickering in rapid succession. Through the chaos, a dark figure emerged from the shadows. It held a twisted version of my likeness. This apparition mocked the light surrounding me, stepping confidently toward the mirror, its eyes glinting with malicious intent. "Why strive for greatness?" it sneered, its voice smooth and chilling. "You're nothing without your shadows. Embrace the darkness that fills you." But I could feel the warm light pulsing faster now, synchronized with my heartbeat. I shut my eyes, focusing on the warmth, imagining every moment of strength I had ever felt. I remembered the times I had lifted others up, the smiles I had shared, and how I fought for those I loved. Just like that, the tension broke. I opened my eyes and turned back to the mirror. "You don't define me. I choose who I become." The dark reflection screeched, the sound scraping at my ears like nails on a chalkboard. Suddenly, the room trembled and the shadows hissed angrily. They spiraled around me, trying to drag me into their depths, but the light around me grew even brighter, illuminating each corner of the chamber. The walls began to vibrate, and the darkness around me pulsed and shifted, desperately trying to maintain its hold. Shadows lashed out like ropes, wrapping around my limbs and trying to pull me down. I doubled over, fighting against the weight pulling at my spirit. But in that moment, I felt the light intensify, pushing against the bindings of darkness. I wrapped my hands tighter around the edges of the pedestal, calling upon the energy that sparked within me, urging it to explode forth. My voice surged with power, a primal shout escaping my lips. "You have no power here. I am stronger than the fears you have planted in my heart." As my voice echoed, the energy flowing from the mirror crushed the darkness like a tidal wave. It surged through me, exploding outward, sending waves of luminescence crashing against the walls. The shadows shrieked in horror, some dissipating like fog in the sun, screaming as they were annihilated by the surge of light. In the chaos, I caught a glimpse of something in the flickering reflections of the mirror, a shape darting in the corner, dark and sinister, almost like a figure I recognized. It had eyes that glimmered with an unsettling familiarity, swirling like black holes that threatened to pull in everything around them. "Don't look," the voice from the shadows hissed, desperately clawing at the air. "It's only a trap. Look at what I showed you before. You know you can't escape us." But now I understood the game they were playing. It was just a trick, a diversion to keep me from the truth. I would not be lured back into that void. Summoning every ounce of strength and determination, I faced the mirror head-on. "Show me my strength," I cried. "Let the light reveal who I really am." With that declaration, the mirror flashed with blinding light, images shifting rapidly until they halted on a scene. It showed me standing tall, surrounded by friends, people I had lifted when they were down, moments I cherished more than anything else. Laughter filled the air as warmth enveloped the group, showcasing my potential for joy, compassion, and resilience. "No," the shadows wailed, "this is not who you are." But I stepped forward, embracing that truth as the light surged again, brighter than before. With each heartbeat, I felt fear loosening its grip, replaced by warmth as the darkness shrank away. As the light expanded, it shattered the mirror, releasing a wave of energy that surged forth, obliterating the very core of the dark essence around me. Cracks split the chamber's walls, releasing a wash of golden beams, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. I felt myself no longer tethered to the shadows. A rush of exhilarating freedom surged through me as I soared upward, transcending the chaos. The shadows that had once held me shrieked one last cry before evaporating into nothingness, leaving only a shimmering dust behind. But with that victory, I realized the journey wasn't quite over. From the remnants of darkness, a new presence emerged, a figure cloaked in shadows, yet its face was carved of faint light, its expression unreadable but pulsing with a strange energy. "Why do you resist?" it asked softly, its voice resonating in the stillness that followed the tempest. "You can't escape who you are." For the first time, I wasn't frightened by the lingering shadows. "I know who I am," I replied steadily. "I'm not running, I'm growing. I choose to wield the light within me." The figure shifted, its form shimmering with an unpredictable quality. It stepped closer, allowing the soft light to touch its edges where darkness ebbed, revealing both shadow and luminance. "You may think you have won," it murmured, "but the battle isn't over. Each choice shapes you, and darkness will always linger, waiting for a chance." The chamber began to shimmer around me, the air filled with a blend of light and shadow, swirling like an unending dance. I held on, feeling the power within me pulsate, and the shadows couldn't touch me anymore. "Then I'll be ready," I said with newfound strength. "I will embrace every part of me, both light and shadow." With that, I felt the figure's energy pull away, retreating back into the dark corners of the chamber. The air became thick with silence, but I truly understood now that light and shadow coexist. I took a breath, fully aware that my journey was far from over, and while the darkness may still exist, I would continue to rise against it. And in that realization, I felt renewed courage surging, ready to step back into the world, to face whatever awaited me beyond those walls. With one last glance at the remnants of the shadows, I took steady steps, determined to carry the light with me as I journeyed onward. The way ahead flickered and dimmed, the shadows shivered, but I was ready to embrace the unknown, wherever it might lead. With strength in my heart and light in my soul, I would walk forward, no longer afraid. The darkness surrounding me. Each step echoed through the chamber, my heart pounding in my chest, beating like a drum, warning me of the unknown. The walls pulsed as if they were alive, breathing alongside me, seeming to react to my presence. The air was heavy, thick with anticipation, and I could feel the remnants of shadows still lurking, hiding in the corners, whispering secrets I did not want to hear. Walking forward, I felt a chill sweep around me. It wasn't the embrace of the warm glow from the light, but something far more sinister. Cold fingers seemed to brush against my skin, sending shivers cascading down my spine. I looked around, sweeping the light with me, but all I found were shapes dancing in the edges, darting away just before my gaze could catch them fully. "Come play with us," the whispers cooed, their tones sickly sweet and laced with honeyed malice. I could barely understand their intentions, but I knew they were not there to comfort me. It was as if they knew my every fear, my every worry, and they relished in the darkness that still clouded my vision. Suddenly, a scream broke through the silence. It was distant but unnerving, echoing through the stone walls. A shudder ran through me as a sense of urgency bubbled to the surface. I hurried along the path, feet pounding against the soft earth, desperately trying to follow the sound. As I turned a corner, the ground began to slope downward, leading me deeper into the heart of the darkness. The walls grew damp, moisture dripping down like the tears of the shadows that clung to me. The further I went, the more I could feel the pulse of fear, a rhythmic thumping that felt all too human. The scream pierced the air again, this one closer, more frantic. I pressed on, my heart racing. It felt like I was being watched by countless eyes, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment I would falter and fall. "You don't belong here," came a hushed voice barely above a whisper. I spun around but found only darkness, my breath hitching in my throat. "Are you sure you want to continue? Do you really want to see what lies ahead?" I stood frozen, the question hanging heavily in the air. A part of me wanted to turn back, to escape from this creeping dread that clutched at my heart. But another part remained stubborn, insistent, clamoring for answers and clarity. "Yes," I whispered, my voice trembling but resolute. "I want to know. I want to face whatever is here." The moment I spoke, the shadows thickened, almost as if they were reacting to my words, swelling around me like a living creature. I felt the temperature drop sharply, my breaths becoming visible little plumes of fog. The lights flickered and dimmed until darkness wrapped itself around me, suffocating and oppressive. Just then, a figure materialized before my eyes. It was indistinct at first, moving like a wisp of smoke, but as it approached, it took on the shape of a tall, menacing silhouette. Its eyes glowed a sickening green, piercing straight through the dark. "You have come to face your fears," it said, its voice a low growl mixed with laughter, like leaves rustling in a sinister breeze. "But do you truly understand what that means? Do you know what you will lose?" I swallowed hard. "I won't let you control me," I shouted, though inside, the doubt coiled tighter around my heart. "If I must fight, then I will fight." The figure chuckled, a haunting sound that echoed in the tight space. "Very well," it said, stepping closer, the shadows wrapping around it, morphing into the shapes of those I had lost. They appeared around me, faces familiar yet twisted with sorrow, seeking something from me, something I didn't understand. "Look at what you've abandoned," they cried, their voices mingling in a mournful harmony. "You left us behind. But we are still here, always lingering, waiting for your return." They reached out with ghostly hands, trying to pull me towards their dark forms, and with each step they advanced, the air thickened, rippling with an energy that felt suffocating. I stumbled back, caught in a tangle of emotions, regret, loss, and the weight of their accusations wrapping around me like chains. "You think you're strong," the figure hissed. But you're so easily swayed. Surrender to the shadows and you will find peace. They will comfort you. I struggled against the rising tide of despair, the weight of their memories threatening to drown me. I could feel those hands wrapping around my limbs, squeezing tighter, coaxing me to give in to the suffocating embrace of despair. For a moment, I wavered, contemplating the relief they promised. But amid that chaos, a flicker of defiance ignited within me again. No, I shouted, my voice rising above the sirens of despair. I will not let you take me. I honor my memories, but I will not live in the shadows. With that declaration, I reached deep inside myself, grasping that warm light where my courage lay buried, allowing it to grow brighter and swamping the darkness. Suddenly, the shadows recoiling, disintegrating into wisps of smoke, fading back into the cold, unwelcoming corners of the chamber. The figure strained against my newfound strength, its expression twisted in rage and disbelief. You cannot escape, it screamed, its voice cracking. You will always belong to the darkness. A violent surge coursed through the air as I pushed forward, the light expanding like a sun breaking through gray clouds. The walls trembled, jagged cracks spidering through the rock, letting out a blinding glow. The haunting figures shrieked in anger, their dark faces folding into the void as they attempted to grasp what they could no longer have. I am my own, I yelled, determination coursing through me, my heart pulsing in rhythm with the energy spreading outward. I am whole. The dark figure writhed, shadows swirling around it, struggling against the tide of light. It let out a howl, a terrible sound that echoed through the stone, reverberating in my very bones. Then, in a moment that felt suspended in time, the air split with a brilliant flash as the light surged forth, consuming everything in its path. The figure evaporated into a mist of darkness, disappearing without a trace as the radiant energy flooded the chamber, illuminating all that lay hidden in the depths. As I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of the shadows, I felt the weight of fear lift from my shoulders. The echoes of the past faded, leaving only whispers of what could have been. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter, like I had shed a heavy coat that had weighed me down for far too long. But even as I stepped away, the air shimmered around me, a disconcerting sensation wrapping around my throat. The final flicker of the shadows lingered, hinting they were not entirely gone, but now I held the light, the very essence of my strength. I moved forward, the path winding through the now familiar shadows. The chamber shifted as if the very walls were alive, responding to my presence. The warmth of the glow illuminated fragments of long-lost memories, both beautiful and painful. Each step echoed with an unsettling reminder of the balance I would always face. Light and dark blurred together, revealing that both parts were a part of my journey, two sides of the same coin. The path darkened again, creeping tendrils curling back toward me, but this time I would not fear them. I felt confident, steady, like a beacon cutting through the night. I pressed on, determined to unveil the truth that lurked beyond. As I ventured deeper into the heart of the chamber, the passage opened into a vast expanse, an underground cavern bustling with shadows. The air thickened with palpable tension as figures swirled in the dim glow, circling one another in a twisted dance of light and dark. I could feel their gaze upon me, watching, waiting for my reaction, and a sense of unease washed over me. What now? I whispered into the thick air, looking for answers among the flickers of light and shadow. You have returned to face the final truth. A low voice echoed from the depths, sending chills racing down my spine. The shadows parted, revealing a figure cloaked in a tattered shroud, its face hidden beneath a cowl. What lies ahead will test you beyond what you have ever known. Do you truly wish to continue? My heart pounded in my chest, adrenaline spiking through every vein. This was it, the final confrontation. I knew I could not turn away now. Yes, I answered, my voice steady. I am ready for whatever awaits. The figure nodded slowly, raising a skeletal hand that gestured for me to step closer. The shadows twisted, pulling apart to reveal a swirling void beyond. You must enter the abyss. Confront the part of you that still clings to the darkness. Face the fears you bury deep. I hesitated, the words sending a chill through me. The abyss loomed like a hungry mouth, dark and unfathomable, threatening to swallow me whole. But deep within me, the light burned brighter, reminding me of my journey, the battles I fought, the strength I had found. I stepped forward, gathering every ounce of courage that pulsed within me. I will not let fear decide my fate, I declared, stepping into the void, surrounded by darkness that enveloped me like a thick fog, each breath heavy and labored. As I crossed the threshold, the shadows screamed, a discordant symphony that echoed in my ears. A whirlwind of emotions surged around me: fear, anger, regret. And at that moment, standing at the precipice of my own darkness, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The abyss pulsed with a dreadful life of its own, steadily drawing me deeper into its cold embrace. And even though I felt the shadows trying to smother me, I pushed against the darkness, demanding to hold on to the light. I was ready to confront whatever waited inside. Into the abyss, my senses heightened and every hair on my body stood on end. Shadows danced around me, shifting and swirling in a chaotic rhythm. Each pulse echoed like a heartbeat from the depths, a dark and haunting cadence that resonated through my very core. The darkness wrapped around me like ice, numbing and chilling, but I pressed on. An unsettling whisper slid through the air, brushing my ears with chilling words. "You are lost," it breathed. "You think you can escape? We know your fears, we are the shadows of your soul." I felt a wave of panic wash over me, but I shoved it back down. I needed to face this. I had to confront my own darkness. I took a deep breath, pushing against the weight of despair that wrapped around me like a dense fog, clinging tightly to my skin. As I stepped further, the shadows coiled around me, forming ghastly shapes that stretched and morphed into twisted faces, all screaming silently, and their mouths wide with horror as they tried to reach out for me. Each face was a reminder, a collage of my regrets and moments of fear. Lost friendships, broken promises, sleepless nights haunted by what-ifs. "Why do you fight?" one face moaned, its hollow eyes boring into my soul. "You can't change. You'll always be the coward who turns away." My heart pounded, the words digging into me like knives. But as their taunts circled my mind, the light within began to flicker with defiance. "I won't let you define me," I snapped back, my voice firm even as it trembled slightly. But the shadows pressed in closer, thickening, whispering sweet lies that wrapped around my thoughts. "Do you remember the darkness? The times you hid? The nights you were alone?" I could feel myself slipping, memories flooding back. Sleepless nights spent wrestling with doubt, the lonely days when I felt invisible. It was all there, lurking at the edges, dragging me back, threatening to pull me under. "You cannot escape the truth of which you are," a low voice echoed from the depths, chilling me to my core. "Every shadow you see is a piece of you. They are your greatest fears." The shadows twisted around me like a storm, and in the eye of it all, I struggled to hold on to that defiant spark. I took another step, but the pressure pushed down harder, as if the very ground wanted to swallow me whole. I had to move forward. I had to confront whatever darkness lay ahead, but the fear wrapped around my ankles like chains, holding me firmly in place. "Embrace the darkness," the voice coaxed, softer now, seductive. "It can be your refuge. Let go of your light. Let us take you home." But home wasn't here. This was a world crafted from nightmares and shadows, and I wouldn't bow to it. "I'm not afraid of you," I forced out, drawing on every ounce of courage. With each word, I felt the pulse of light within me surge, pushing back the shadows that lunged for me. "You think you have power? It is nothing," the apparition hissed. Then they shifted, and suddenly what I saw was the most terrifying: myself staring back at me through the swirling abyss. It wasn't a mere ghost or reflection. It was me, twisted and contorted, eyes dark and void of any light, a cruel grin stretching across my face. "This is what you hide from," it taunted, reaching out with skeletal fingers, grasping for me. "You cannot escape. This is who you truly are." The air around me thickened, suffocating as doubt crept in. Tears pricked at my eyes as I fought against the wave of anguish crashing over me. "No, this isn't who I am," I shouted, voice cracking, terror rising. "But it is," the shadowy version of me whispered, drawing closer. "How can you deny the truth?" I stumbled backward, heart racing. The edge of reality wavered. The truths I kept buried deep within me clawed their way back to the surface, demanding acknowledgement. All the fears I thought I had dealt with surged forward, filling the void, threatening to consume me whole. The room twisted, and the faces of shadows morphed again, transforming into the people I had hurt. They circled around me, fingers outstretched, eyes filled with disappointment. "Why did you leave us?" they echoed, their voices overlapping with sadness and betrayal. I felt my resolve falter, memories sweeping over me like a storm, each one sharp and biting. "I didn't mean to," I whispered, my throat tightening, but their faces were unyielding, filled with pain. I staggered, a sense of guilt crashing over me like waves, washing me away into despair. But then a flicker of light ignited deep within my chest. "I am not defined by my past," I cried, pushing back against the tide of shadows. "I am learning. I am growing." And with that declaration, I felt the light pulse fiercely, breaking through the suffocating barrier surrounding me. The darkness shrieked, seeming to recoil from the sudden brightness. I could see it now. Shadows were retreating, twisting away from the glow erupting from my being, revealing a path ahead, pulsing brightly like a beacon. But I couldn't back down. I locked eyes with the dark version of myself. You don't own me. I have the strength to rise above. The figure's grin faltered, confusion flashing across its twisted face as it staggered back. But the shadows were ferocious, filling the void with howls and despair. You will always belong to us, they screamed in unison, and I could feel the ground trembling as if the very fabric of this nightmare was unraveling. It was a battle of wills now, and the sheer force of my determination pushed against the tide of darkness. I surged forward again, stepping towards the light, the glow pulsating against the darkness encircling me. I knew I could not let their voices drag me down, they had no power over me anymore. But just as I took a bold step into the radiant light ahead, the shadows lunged back, surging forward like a flood. Twisted hands reached out, grasping at me, clawing and scraping, desperate to pull me back into the depths of despair. I stumbled, struggling to maintain my ground, the weight of their presence bearing down like a storm. Join us, they whispered, their voices honeyed and sickening. It is easier to sink back into the familiar. Let go of your fight. But I refused to listen. I am not alone, I shouted, feeling the warmth of the light grow stronger around me, illuminating the darkness with fierce determination. As I fought against the shadows, they erupted into chaos, streaks of black storming away. I stood my ground, refusing to be swept back into that unending void. My breath quickened, and I pushed forward, arms outstretched to embrace the light that glittered just beyond, leaving behind the whispers of lies that had hounded my every step. The cavern swirled around me as if the very essence of darkness was trying to pulse back into existence. But the light fought to stay, striving to erase every hint of despair. I clung to that brilliance, propelling myself through the chaos, and with one final surge, I hurled myself forward, embracing the light as it enveloped me once again. But just before I crossed the threshold, the shadows erupted in a terrifying scream, their voices melding into a single haunting note that vibrated through the very walls. You cannot escape us, their chilling warning echoed long after I stepped into the radiance. In a blinding flash, I transcended the abyss, finding myself somewhere else entirely, on the other side of the darkness. I blinked hard, trying to adjust to the brightness piercing through the memories of despair, but something sensed in my gut told me the shadows were still lurking, watching, waiting for a chance to reclaim what they had lost. Standing in that new, colorful expanse, I felt both relieved and unsettled. I would never truly outrun the darkness. So I steadied myself, preparing for whatever was to come, determined to confront whatever shadows would dare re-emerge. The light wrapped around me like a warm embrace, but even as I stepped into it, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The air felt thick, like walking through fog, obscuring my vision, and it took effort to keep myself grounded. The space was eerie, an in-between place where shadows still flickered on the edges, wanting to pull me back. Even though I could see the ground beneath my feet, the shifting mist created a sense of unreality, making it hard to breathe. Every few seconds, the wind howled softly like a distant moan, reminding me that I was not alone. As I moved forward, unease crept up my spine. The shadows lingered at the periphery of my vision, flickering just out of reach like something watching me closely, ready to pounce. My heart raced as I strained to see what lay ahead. Was this true freedom? Or just a temporary reprieve before the darkness returned? Then I noticed the shapes forming in the mist. Figures danced just beyond the glowing light, faceless silhouettes that twisted and turned, circling me. The sight sent a shiver down my back. They moved like marionettes jerked by unseen strings, their movements erratic yet hypnotic, drawing me in against my will. I felt a strange pull, a weight of dread wrapping around me. Who are you? I called out, my voice echoing in the stillness. But no answer came, only the whispers of the wind, which curled like fingers around my body, tightening with each breath I took. Each step felt heavier, as if the darkness clung to me like a second skin, urging me to turn back. You can't escape, a voice hissed from the shadows, sending a chill through my core. It felt familiar, echoing from a place deep within me. We're always waiting for you. They came closer, the faceless shadows swirling, forming a vortex around me. Suddenly, the mist thickened, and the brightness flickered, illuminating grotesque faces, twisted, anguished, with eyes filled with pain. They reached for me, hands stretching out with fingers like claws that seemed intent on pulling me into the depths of their suffering. Stay with us, they wailed in unison, their voices haunting and hollow. "We will heal the emptiness you feel. You do not belong in the light." Every word pricked at my heart, igniting the old fears I had thought I had overcome. Memories flashed in front of my eyes, moments of failure and isolation. I could almost hear the echoes of my own cries for help, lost in the void of despair for far too long. But then I remembered those fiery moments of strength, the resolve that had pushed me through the shadows. "I am not like you," I shouted, voice stronger than before, cutting through the cacophony of despair. "I will not drown in your darkness." The figures recoiled, momentarily stunned, their whispers fading to a low murmur as I stepped forward again. But just as I felt the slightest hint of victory, the ground beneath me trembled, and the very air thickened with tension. The shadows erupted, swirling violently, and the anguished faces morphed into something more sinister, twisted into grins that sent waves of terror through me. I could see the darkness converging, combining into a massive form, a beast woven from despair, its eyes glowing with malice and teeth sharp enough to rip. "Run," it growled, voice echoing like thunder in the vast emptiness. Its presence was suffocating, overpowering me with dread. Every instinct screamed for me to escape, to flee from this nightmare. But where could I run? The shadows twisted around in chaotic elegance, blocking any path forward. I took a step back, my heart racing as the darkness surged closer. Each breath felt more difficult, almost as if they were squeezing the air from my lungs. The creature towered over me, its form shifting, resembling not just my fears but all the things I had tried to escape. The memories of loss, regret, and pain carved into its very being. "Face me," it demanded, a terrible grin stretching across its face. "Face your truth." As the shadows tightened their grip, I dug deep, reaching for that light still flickering inside me. I wouldn't be consumed. I couldn't let this darkness win. "I am more than you think," I shouted, my voice defiant amidst the chaos. And in that moment, I felt the warmth within me surge forward, pushing against the shadows, illuminating the very air around me. The beast recoiled, howling in anger, the sound vibrating through the ground, shaking the very foundations of this nightmarish world. It lunged forward, teeth bared, but I pressed on, feeling the light fueling my every step, expanding out like a shield, forcing the shadows back. "You don't own me," I yelled, my fear turning into a roar of strength as I faced the creature head-on. The air crackled with electricity as I pushed through the mists, the ground resonating beneath my feet. I could feel the creature's rage, but it only fueled my determination. The shadows lashed out, trying to claw me back, but I charged forward, light radiating from every pore of my soul. With one final surge, I launched into the heart of darkness, surrounding myself with the warmth of my courage, blinding the creature with the sheer force of my will. I felt the power within swell as the light erupted like a final storm, driving the shadow beast back, causing it to dissolve into the echoing abyss. I landed hard on the ground, breathless but unbroken. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the faint light, the mist retreating, shadows fading into nothing. But as I regained my composure, something ominous lingered in the air. I stood alone, the remnants of my battle swirling gently around me. But looking back, I could spot faint traces of darkness, lingering whispers sneaking through the corners, their presence ever watchful. I knew then just because I had fought back didn't mean the shadows were gone for good. What now? I wondered aloud, my heart still racing. The echoes of the shadows shifted again around me, but this time with an unsettling calm, like they were biding their time, waiting for an opportunity. And I was determined to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With a fierce determination ignited within me, I pressed on, aware that though the shadows might linger, I held the light, my strength. Stepping deeper into this new landscape, I could see flickers of dark memories still alive, shadows flitting at the edges of my vision like fireflies in the night, but the knowledge that I could confront them drove me forward. This isn't the end, I promised myself, glancing back only once. The dark figures rose again as if gathering energy, their faces obscured and haunting. They wouldn't steal my spirit. I wouldn't let them. I took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of my light steady in rhythm with my heartbeat, reminding me that every battle was a growth, not just a fight. And as I pressed forward into the unknown, I would not only confront my past but embrace the lessons forged in the fires of fear. The shadows may have lingered, but so would my resilience, ready to face whatever horrors would confront me next. Into the unknown, I felt the air shift around me, cold and heavy, as if the very atmosphere was alive and aware of my presence. My heart raced, but I steadied my breath, knowing I had faced the darkness before. This time would be different. As I walked further, the light behind me dimmed. Shadows crept along the ground, stretching and twisting as if they were reaching for my ankles, trying to pull me back into uncertainty. I fought the urge to glance back, determined to move on, but the whispers slid back into my mind, an unsettling hum I couldn't shake. "Will you ever truly escape?" one voice taunted. "It's only a matter of time before you return. You shouldn't be here," another hissed in my ear, just inches away, sending goosebumps cascading over my skin. I turned quickly, expecting to see a figure looming nearby, but nothing was there. A wave of panic washed over me and I shook my head. I wanted to rise above this, to claim my power. Taking a deep breath, I pressed onward, the mist swirling around my legs like thick smoke, making the ground beneath me feel unsteady. The air grew colder and I could feel a weight pressing down, an oppressive feeling that made it hard to breathe. Shadows twisted into shapes, morphing into faces full of anguish and despair, their eyes pleading as they echoed my own fears. "Why did you leave us?" one shadow whispered, the voice barely above a murmur. "We were all you had." "No," I whispered back, voice thick with emotion. "I'm fighting for something more. I'm fighting for myself." As the words left my lips, the shadows surged forward, swirling like a violent storm, trying to drown out my resolve. Darkness pulsed around me like a living thing, and I felt the weight of their sorrow threatening to swallow me whole. "You can't escape your past," they cried, their voices layering into a symphony of despair that made my ears ring. "You will always be this. You can't change what you are." I stumbled, almost giving in to the shadows creeping closer. Their faces twisted in agony, filling my heart with dread. I could see my own reflection mixed in, my failures and secrets clawing at me. But in that moment of doubt, I remembered the light within, the strength that had pushed me through the darkness before. Squeezing my eyes shut, I envisioned that flame flickering brightly. It ignited a will deep inside me, pushing back against the weight of the shadows. "I am more than this," I shouted, bursting forth with renewed determination, forcing the shadows to recoil. "I will rise. You do not own me." The dark forms howled, retreating momentarily as if my words struck them hard. But even as they fell back, I felt the ground tremble beneath me, a warning that the darkness was not finished yet. Without warning, the mist around me thickened again, swirling faster. Shapes darted through the fog, flickering at the edges of my vision. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to flee from those shadows. But I stood my ground, heart thumping furiously. I had come too far. A figure began to take shape ahead. Its form was tall, looming, and cloaked in shadows that clung to it like a second skin. My breath caught in my throat as I wondered what awaited me. The figure stepped closer, revealing features that were tantalizingly familiar. It was me, my doppelganger, but distorted. The face twisted with anger, its eyes black as night. "Why do you fight?" it demanded, voice icy and sharp. "Do you not see? This is who you always were, who you will always be." The air turned frigid. My heart raced as my dark self laughed, a sound full of malice and despair. "You think you can conquer us? You can't escape what you were born into." "No," I breathed, shaking my head. "I refuse to accept that. I can't be defined by my past." But the darkness around me began to pulse, matching the rhythm of my fear as the shadows solidified into a wall of agony, a barrier that started closing in on me. Hopelessness crept into my bones and I could feel the chill of dread swarming back. "You will always be here with us," they echoed, circling tighter. "This is your true form." The confusion surged higher, the cries surrounding me growing into a cacophony, rising to a deafening roar. Every painful moment crowded in on me, their emotions crashing into my resolve, testing my courage. I felt my knees wobble, they threatened to buckle under the pressure. But in the depths of my being, I held on to that flicker of light, a reminder of my fight, the hope that had carried me through before. Gathering my strength, I screamed, "Leave me!" summoning the brightness within, somehow intensifying it. The glimmer burst forth, racing through me and expanding into the air around me, illuminating the choking blackness. The shadows screeched, recoiling as they clashed against the brightness. I felt the energy surging, radiant and raw, a shield against the anguish that threatened to consume me. And yet, still they fought back, pulling from their own depths of darkness to smother my light. I felt the fatigue settling in, but I pushed on. "I will not be afraid," I roared, my voice cutting through the chaos. The ground beneath me rumbled violently, and in that moment I saw a pathway, a fissure opening up, a glimpse of a way beyond the shadows. With a final burst of strength, I leaped toward it, the light erupting from within me as I crashed through the darkness. The void howled in rage, but the warmth wrapped around me like a protective cocoon, shielding me from their vengeful grasp. I stumbled forward as the shadows thinned, breaking free of the suffocating weight. The balance was shifting, and even though I felt pain and doubt still lurking, I became more determined with each step. As I landed into the new realm, I noticed how the ground pulsed beneath me. Alive yet unsettling. Shadows flickered in the distance, weaving in and out of sight like phantoms, but they were weaker now. Something felt different. I turned cautiously, absorbing my surroundings. The air less thick, light variant, but still, shadows lurked everywhere like hauntings waiting for their moment. Their whispers echoed, filling the space with chill. "You will never escape us," one whispered, its voice ghostly. "We will find you again." But I stood firm, tightening my grip around that light inside me, knowing I had the strength to fight. "I'll be ready," I vowed, pushing forward into the uncertainty, each step echoing my refusal to be owned by fear. In this uncertain world ahead, I would discover the power of light that had fueled my journey. Whatever shadow came next, I was ready to confront the darkness, and if it meant standing up once more against my deepest fears, I would do it. I would prove that I was stronger than the shadows that chased me. As I pressed forward, I felt the oppressive weight of shadows receding behind me, though their whispers still clawed at my mind. They echoed through the air like echoes of a forgotten nightmare, taunting me with memories I dared not confront. The world around me distorted and twisted, shrouded in a veil of darkness that clung like a fog. An uneasy sensation settled deep in my bones, warning me that this was far from over. Every step I took felt like walking on the edge of a knife, the ground shifting beneath me, as if it were alive and yearning to throw me off into the abyss. I caught glimpses of familiar faces in the swirling mist, old friends, long-lost loved ones, faces I both cherished and feared. They seemed to stretch toward me, hands outstretched, urging me to join them in their sorrow. "Don't you miss us?" a voice called out, soft yet chilling. "This is where you belong." I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to turn back. "I don't belong here," I shouted, but my voice trembled, betraying my resolve. The shadows flickered with intent, as if my proclamation only spurred them on, dark tendrils of despair reaching out for me. The deeper I ventured, the more restless the air became, filled with palpable tension. I could feel my heartbeat quicken, each thump reverberating through the silence like a war drum. It was then that the ground beneath me shuddered, a rumble that felt like the very earth groaning in response to my presence. A sudden chill raced up my spine. Without warning, the shadows coalesced into a thick fog, crackling with energy. Figures emerged from the mist, dark silhouettes that staggered toward me, their faces obscured but their emotions clear. Anger, sorrow, and pain radiated from them, swirling like a vortex. I recognized them in an instant. They were my fears personified, my regrets and failures made real. "You can't escape us," they chanted in unison, the sound echoing like a funeral dirge in the abyss. "We will always follow you." I stood frozen, but something deep within began to stir. The spark of light inside me flickered fiercely in response, illuminating the path ahead. The warmth spread through my chest, igniting a defiance I didn't know I had. "I am not afraid," I cried, grounding myself in my emotions, refusing to surrender to the darkness. The shadows howled in protest as I summoned that inner light, feeling it pulse with strength and energy. The air thickened with tension again, as if the shadows were gathering their forces for one final assault. "You think you can defeat us?" Their voices broke into a frenzied scream, the sound echoing with rage and desperation. "You are nothing without us." With every ounce of strength I had left, I raised my arm, feeling the light radiate from my fingertips, cutting through the oppressive darkness. The shadows shrieked and twisted, contorting in agony as the light pierced their painful facade. For a moment, I felt weightless, transcending the fear that had plagued me for so long. But even at my most powerful, I could feel the shadows clawing back, trying to reclaim their hold. A terrifying vision of what awaited me flashed through my mind, an endless spiral of despair, a world forever shadowed by regret. I took a deep breath, refusing to back down. "This is not the end," I shouted into the void, my voice reverberating with an unyielding light. As the shadows lunged, I found my resolve solidify. The brightness flared, illuminating everything in its path, a splendid explosion of radiance that sent bolts of light cascading through the darkness. And just like that, the shadows began to dissipate, unraveling as they were consumed by the very light they sought to extinguish. I watched helplessly as they twisted and clawed, the anguished faces contorting in finality, fading into nothingness. Yet still, I could sense remnants of their whispers lingering like a chill in the air. The shadows' hold was weakened, but I didn't trust them to disappear completely. With my heart pounding wildly, I took one last step forward, breaking through the remnants of their grasp, bursting into a realm illuminated by warm, inviting light. Though I felt victorious in that moment, my chest tightened as the soft glow began to dim. Shadows lingered at the edges, ready to resurface whenever fear took hold again. Still, I knew I had faced the worst and emerged stronger. I was ready to confront the darkness whenever it reared its head once more. I'd learned to harness the light inside, an empowered defiance that would guide me even when the shadows dared to reappear. This path before me was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt hope. Each step I took marked a new beginning, a commitment to embrace the lessons learned in the shadows and carries that light wherever I went. I took a deep breath, now free to carve my own destiny, and dared to believe that I could live beyond the shadows forever. With the light guiding me, I stepped into my future, determined to shine, ready to confront whatever darkness awaited me. No matter what lay ahead, I knew the battle was worth it. And as the last whispers of shadows faded into silence, I felt a sense of peace wrap around me like a warm blanket, knowing I controlled my journey now.